Do you ever catch yourself saying, English is just crazy? Maybe your students come across a tricky word and you tell them, you just have to memorize that one, or this is the part you have to know by heart. But deep down, you know it's still confusing. Here's the truth. English isn't random. It's a wonderfully complex system, and once you understand how that system works, through sound, structure, and meaning, everything changes. That's what Sarah, Paul, and I teach inside Mastering Morphology. This isn't another curriculum. It's deep teacher knowledge inside a practical, comprehensive course that finally shows you how words really work. No more exceptions, no more gimmicks or patching holes with memorization or phonics alone. It's time to go beyond sound it out and give your students the framework they need to truly understand words. So if you're ready to stop guessing and start teaching with confidence, join us inside Mastering Morphology. Enrollment is open now, so we invite you to click the link in the show notes to get started. You're listening to episode 75 of Literacy in Color. Today, I'm joined by three powerhouse educators whose collaborative work is transforming how teachers bring word inquiry to life through picture books. Returning guest, Fiona Hamilton, who many listeners will remember from her episode on the High Frequency Word Project, is an international literacy consultant and founder of WordTorque, supporting schools around the world in deepening students' understanding of how words really work. She's joined by her partners, Lauren Hateley-Crowe, who is vice principal at a school in Bangkok in Thailand, and Angela Brienza, an experienced literacy coach currently living in Vietnam, both with global teaching background along with a deep love of children's literature and the world of words. Together, the three of them co-created Engage with the Page and Search Engage, dynamic platforms that help educators pair high-quality picture books with purposeful, powerful word study. Welcome to the Literacy in Color podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Sullivan, a science of reading advocate with over a decade of experience as a reading interventionist and literacy coach. I'm passionate about making evidence-based instruction both effective and engaging. If you're interested in captivating our learners on reading fluently and understanding language, or as I like to call it, keeping it colorful, then you've found the right place. Each week, we'll explore intriguing lit bits and practical strategies around the science of reading and structured literacy to help you be colorful and teach colorfully. Are you ready to bring literacy to life? Let's color outside the lines and make an impact together. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Literacy in Color. We are in for a treat and a half with today's episode. We have a returning guest, Fiona Hamilton, who came along. Her partners were Engage with the Page, Lauren Hateley-Crowe and Angela Brienza. And we are going to be chatting about how to make word study and word inquiry in particular applicable and practical in the classroom associated with your read-alouds. So first of all, welcome back to the show, Fiona, and welcome to the show, Lauren and Angela. I'm so happy to have you guys here today.
Thanks for having us.
Michelle. We're excited to be with you.
Of course. And then perhaps we can share a little brief introduction of all your backgrounds and how you came alongside each other to do this work. Maybe Fiona, you'd like to start us off?
Sure. Well, some of you may remember from my last time that I was speaking with you. I am Australian, but I work in Asia. I've worked in international schools in Asia for a long time with a great passion for literacy. So right now I run my own consulting business called WordTorque, and I work with schools around the world really to help them learn how they can more effectively engage in word study so their students really understand more about the power of words and see the connections between words, and can do this also through a lens of inquiry.
Well, I'm Lauren. I can go next. I am a vice principal at a school in Bangkok in Thailand. I've also lived in Switzerland and Hong Kong and originally from Australia, but a big lover of books. And then happened to meet Fiona when she was consulting at our school in Bangkok, and through the love of words as well, which she instilled in me, marrying picture books and words, couldn't think of anything better, really.
And that leaves me. I'm Angela, originally from Canada, married into Australia or work into Australia. Does that count? I don't know. Work with Australians.
Almost an honorary Australian.
But I'm living in Vietnam. So I work at a school here. I'm the literacy coach. So formerly a homeroom teacher, teaching from kindergarten to fifth grade, and then moving into just supporting teachers and kids in literacy, which has been wonderful.
Oh my goodness. So you all have connections with Australia and Asia. I didn't know that. I love that. So how did this partnership come to be? How did you come to creating Engage with the Page and Search Engage and all of the wonderful things that you do together?
Started with some professional development Fiona was doing at our schools, and we were just keyed into her work that she was doing with word inquiry. And we sort of both got the bug after that first professional development. And then we kept messaging her, asking different questions. And hopefully she was noticing that we were doing some great things around words as well, and just asked if we would be interested in working more closely together.
I think really it was mostly because Lauren and Angela always knew all the best picture books. And so I knew that I needed them on the team because they are both literacy gurus in their school and really passionate about the power of using quality literature. So we're studying words, we're looking and we're wanting to grow students' reading and spelling and word usage skills. But we don't want to do that in isolation. We need to use quality literature. And they were my two gun people, my two go-tos for that.
So I think Fiona sparked our interest, and then that passion began for looking at words. I think you can't unsee words once you look at them and study them in this way.
It's so true. I love the collaboration, and it all stemmed with some high quality professional learning. It's like, I want to know this person, and you you brought it into fruition. So to ground our conversation, maybe we can get into describing what word inquiry is. That might be an unfamiliar term for certain people, or they may have particular connotations with the process of word inquiry. So what does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question, because as soon as we throw the word inquiry or inquiry, doesn't matter how you say it, it's the same thing. As soon as we throw that in, some people immediately become defensive, and because there's such polarizing debates in education now about explicit teaching versus inquiry. And I think it's a false dichotomy, because of course we have masses of explicit teaching. We need to teach our children really explicitly foundational grapheme phoneme correspondences. We need to work on the skills and strategies that we use to inquire into words. But when we build up these skills, it is so great to involve the children in figuring out what's going on with words. And so word inquiry, really, when we start to look at how words work, we're looking at an approach that simultaneously builds our reading and spelling skills while strengthening vocabulary. And of course, because we involve children in, not every lesson, but in some lessons, in saying, hey, given what you know about words and how they work, what do you think is going on here? And giving them strategies to do that, then we're supporting the development of their critical thinking skills, which of course is vitally important in our learners.
Yeah, I was going to say, Fiona, for us, for our students, we kind of say that idea of being a word noticer, and then you become a word knower. So we want kids to be curious about words, but we also want them to be grounded in knowledge as well. So that word noticer to word knower.
Yeah, and I am so glad that you brought up the idea that inquiry can feel like a scary word in education, because we hear in the science of reading world the importance of direct explicit instruction. And we all here are advocates for that. At the same time, there is so much value in letting students grapple with a set of something challenging. And that goes to the science of learning. When we think about how the brain will actually solidify information, they need to have a little bit of challenge there. And the teacher can provide the instruments to make that possible. It's not just like, poof, let me wonder about everything in the world all at once, but you're laying the groundwork to have something to be curious about as well. So it's like you're the chef providing the ingredients and let me see what I can figure out. And then I'm going to directly teach you as well.
Yeah. And I think the important thing to bear in mind here is that the struggle needs to be productive. We're not just saying, go and figure it out. We're providing the ingredients for the children to do the cooking, as it were. But we're going to stop and be like, no, not enough salt. You need a little more pepper or whatever. And so we stop to be explicit when we need to be explicit, because children who are starting to wonder about something, if they're completely going tangentially and it's not going to go anywhere in your whole lesson, the struggle won't be productive, then that's not good either. But we do at the end of that lesson want them to feel like, hey, we figured something out. I'm the sort of kid that can perhaps figure out things. And that's so rewarding when you see children start to believe in themselves as learners.
Yeah, talk about motivation. It's a beautiful thing. And I love how you just ran with the analogy as well. For teachers who might be new to your work still, how would you describe your platform Engage to the Page? What would make it different from doing a traditional read aloud?
It's a great question, but I think we saw the power of beautiful books and using those in our classroom. We've been all doing that for a really long time and really mining those beautiful books for teachable moments. Often we're using books to teach those complex ideas or to dive into some content, build some knowledge. But how about using these beautiful books to then also dive deeper into words, because that's what they're full of and they're so rich words that we can really look at.
Yeah, we were thinking about it, how, in literacy, we've moved sort of to that idea of a text set, really beautiful books that you can use for a variety of things, right? We want to read meaningful texts, but we want to be able to use them throughout the day or throughout the week. When you're pressed for time, what can you do with that book? And we noticed all of the beautiful words in there. So when you do a read aloud, great, enjoy the book as a read aloud, but then look at what words could be in there. There might be a word family that comes out, or maybe there's a phonics element, or maybe you're about to engage with a different phonics element. You could find a book that connects that way.
Yeah. And just we know that kids love books, right? I had the joy of reading with a class the other day and they're all captivated. So why not revisit that? And Molly Ness reminds us that read alouds are not just for building those literacy skills, but they do have rich content knowledge. And we also talk about classroom connections. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But what else can we use these books for? Because picture books are just so powerful in so many ways. We also talk about how they're great to revisit for that consolidation piece. If you've been teaching something, dive back into a book. You could use it as a platform for that beginning thinking, or you can use it then also to consolidate and practice orthographically mapping graphemes or affixes, and the picture book can be used for that as well.
So good books used as good books, but also really purposefully, right?
Yeah. And in the beginning, Fiona was talking about not teaching in silos, making an integrated way of bridging all of these pieces in your literacy block together. And I think this is the perfect way to do that, because oftentimes we're thinking of our read alouds as a way to build knowledge or to do some vocabulary work. But to also have an extension of word study, I think is so powerful, because then word study is this 10-minute thing that lives in a box with these isolated words that are disconnected from everything else. So when you kind of bridge that gap and bring it into what you're already doing, I think can be powerful. And it goes to show too, you don't have to read aloud once and be done with it. You can bring it back and do some more interesting work with it. Can you walk us through what this might look like with one particular read aloud?
Oh, that's a hard one. It's so hard to just pick one book, right?
We should showcase, I don't know, one of our most popular books, or maybe we're talking words. So we have a lot of beautiful picture books that are word related.
Yeah, I'm really loving the art of words right now, but it's not yet on Engage. So maybe a word collector book.
It was actually our first book, because I think I'd given it to Fiona as a gift and she signed it for me, because I'm like, wow, this is just perfect for word study. But it's The Word Collector by Peter H. Reynolds. And I think it's such a good book for launching the year. And that idea of being a word noticer, little Jerome goes around his life collecting words that spark his interest, and that idea that words can be really powerful. So, of course, you can choose a book that your children love because it fits with a teaching topic, or at this this time of the year, this is a really good one that we can really think about what specific word inquiry links we could think about through this book.
And it's also a great book because many schools do have Peter Reynolds in their library and specifically the word collector. So in your classroom or in your school library already.
So the process, you were saying, what's the process? We've obviously talked about just choosing a book. There's so many books. So once you have your book, of course, the first thing you want to do is read the book with the class just to enjoy it. We don't want to pick up a book. Oh, today I want you to listen for all the words that have an ing in it, and you're reading the story, and the children either are so busy doing that they're not listening to the story, or they're listening and they forget. So always, of course, just enjoy that book. But then, as you were saying, Michelle, come back to it. We don't want to read a book once and be done with it. Come back. Everyone knows the story. We're choosing books always in Engage with the Page that can stand on their own as great literature. That's part of our criteria for the books that we choose. But then, so you've got your book. Before you read it with the class, we're always going to advocate that you preview the book as a teacher and look for, through a word inquiry lens, what might you choose to teach. Of course, with the books that we're showcasing, we've done that work for you and we're giving you suggestions. But if you're choosing a different book, think about the different things we need to study with words. And with our suggestions, we're giving lots of suggestions. You can't do them all. Choose one. Is it going to be a particular word family? For example, in the word collector, obviously the word collect is fantastic. And if you have older children and you want to dig deeper, you can look at LECT as the bound base. But also that agent suffix, that OR, when we so typically use ER, it's really great to look at that OR and then maybe contrast it with other words like readers and writers that have an ER. You could just go really simple and say collector. So what's the first sound? What letter are we spelling it with? C. And then we have ideas for looking for other words in the story, looking for words around the room and so on that have the letter C, and you could be looking at the different sounds that it can make.
Yeah, Michelle, you mentioned also going back to a book, right? That idea of rereading it. So you could use this in other times than this book as well. So you've used it for word inquiry. You've used it as a story students enjoy, but you could also use it for some classroom connections. Maybe you're building identity. So students could bring in their own collections. What does that mean about them? Or you're starting to notice to be curious. What else are we curious about in our classroom? Is it just words, or are there other things as well? So just extending that book beyond just the one lesson in isolation.
Yeah, that was very important to us because we're all teachers, we're all educators. Of course, our primary focus is word study, but we wanted to show this integrated nature of how you can use books for so many different things. So we're always including classroom connections, things that you could do that connect with your other areas of study.
And I absolutely adore Peter Reynolds. I probably have almost all of his books. Did you see his The Gift of Words that just came out? I didn't grab that one yet. But even as you were saying the title, I was like, oh my gosh, I can think of 3 things alone with the title that you could study. Like you were just saying, the word collect. You can split it into the word sum, COL plus LECT plus OR. Or there's value in investigating the stem collect, like you mentioned, Fiona. Or I think when you were mentioning also the suffix OR versus ER, when does that happen? And we use OR when we're attaching it to Latin-based words, and you use ER when they're Anglo-Saxon. And sometimes we don't have to get into the word origin, but eventually you see like, oh my goodness, OR is always going to these types of words and ER is always going to these types of words. And again, you're painting that picture of you're providing the ingredients and then like, let's look at this interesting information together. And gosh, there's so many more beautiful words that can take you down a million different directions. And I think the beauty in the work that you do is it's not that you're taking apart every single word in the book either. You're staying grounded in a particular focus and going deeper in that arena.
When you were talking about OR versus ER, top tip for people that I often share is As you said, OR comes from words with a Latin root, historical root. So often if you can add ION, the suffix ION to that base, then that helps you to know that it will be OR, because ION is a Latin suffix as well. So collection, collector. And that's a really great way, because it's really confusing for people, understandably. Why do we have two suffixes that have the same meaning? Oh, it's because of history. How on earth do I know which one to use? And so that can be helpful. Doesn't hold all the time, because I think sometimes words were OR and we've just started to spell them with an ER because that's more common.
Yeah. And it just brings you down the rabbit hole even further, because then you think about teacher, ER, instructor, OR, instruction, and you just bridge all of those connections, which is so beautiful. So within Engage with the Page, which is a free resource on your website, you have loads of picture books where you share a lot of this work. Actually, I was just scoping out the other day about Alexander and the No Good, I can't even say the title, Very Bad Day.
Norman Lauren, she got it really muddled up when we were making that video. Remember that, Lauren? And I said the title the wrong way.
I thought it was so fascinating how you were talking about investigating different words that have a double letter and the reasoning why they might have a double letter. Like this one might have a double letter because it followed something in the doubling rule. This one might have a double letter because it has a prefix that ends with one letter and a base that starts with the same letter. And for kids to sort words according to why they think that double letter might be there. And it's just loads of fun when you search your website and you see all of the different offerings you have and all of the different directions and conversations that you can have with children, which are really, really special and impactful.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
It's conversations that the students want to have as well, right? They're really interested in.
Absolutely. Instead of just saying English is so crazy, let's talk about it and explore the reasons why our language is functioning the way it does. Like I said, Engage with the Page is a free website, free resources, but you also branched out to create Search Engage. So can you share how that's structured and how it differs from Engage with the Page?
Well, we ended up with way more books on Engage with the Page than we ever imagined we would. And people kept asking us if there was a way to make them searchable, because we had so many. I mean, we were doing a new book a week for a really long time. And it got to the point where we'd know that we talked about a particular word family or a particular affix or grapheme, classroom connection, something. We'd be like messaging each other, which book was it that we did, the OR suffix or whatever. And we couldn't remember which book that we found to showcase that particular feature. And so then we knew it was time to create a database where you actually could search. And it is a subscription model because it has been timely and costly to build, but we are still committed to providing some free content for people. So Engage with the Page will always exist as a monthly post, but with a handful of ever-changing books. But the majority of books have moved now into Search Engage.
Yeah, so we've got the over 140 of the Engage with the Page posts. We've got it on the database, but we also worked hard to add around 150 more books. So it's about a collection of 330 at the moment, searchable books, and you can search by specific categories. And we've tried to help teachers with making those categories really clear.
Amazing. And this subscription is much better than Netflix. You've got the best of the best of children's literature available. And the database, I noticed, is searchable by different types of qualities. So you had different categories like finding families, looking into the letters, sorting out structure, telling the tale, and classroom connections. And by the way, I love the alliteration as well. I noticed, I'm a word watcher, I noticed your beautiful alliteration. But maybe you can define each of the categories and what they mean exactly, and what would be an example of what an educator would find within that category.
Sure. I think we know part of word inquiry is looking at those bases, those base words, and then finding other words that have that same base. So that's our finding families. So in that area, you can, if you're looking at perhaps helping in your classroom, so you want to look up the base help, you can search up help. And then when you click on it, you'll find a range of books that have that base help featured in them. So that way you start with a base that you're interested in, and it will bring you to a collection of books that we've already looked at that have that base.
And looking into letters. So that's where graphemes and phonemes are located. And here letters and sounds are organized by consonants and vowels. And we include unigraphs, digraphs, trigraphs. So if you're up to a specific place in your phonics scope and sequence, you could jump onto the database, click on that grapheme or phoneme. So like C, for example, in the word collect, whatever you're exploring, and instantly find picture books that support that particular learning that you're doing.
Yeah, and then I'm not sure if sorting out structure or finding families is the one that we use the most, but we're often on both of those to go, oh, for sorting out structure, it has different affixes. So your prefixes and your suffixes. And so if you're looking for a book that has that OR suffix, because your students were really into it after the word collector, you can search the OR suffix and find other books where that is featured as well. Or perhaps you're looking at a new prefix, you're looking at RE, what books have that RE prefix. So that's for sorting out structure. You would use that searchable feature.
And then we have a section called Telling the Tale, because we know that words have stories. And we think that sometimes we put this together because we feel like sometimes you might be talking to the children about words that have come from Greek, and you might want to give a couple of different examples, or maybe you're doing a week looking at something like this. And so if you click on words with Greek history, then that will take you to a range of books. And what we haven't said so far is that then it gives you a selection of books that, for whatever feature you're searching, click on the one that you are interested in or that your library has, and then that will take you to a page that gives a summary of the book and then lists all of the different connections you could possibly make with that book, links to a downloadable activity, and if we've made a video about it, we'll also link back to that video that we did on Engage with the Page. But we have some other sections as well. I just thought we hadn't explained that not only does it show books, but we then you can click on each book and go further.
Yeah, and then we also did put classroom connections in there. I think we've talked a bit about that already, but that idea that if you are looking for a book for a special event, like we've just had Halloween, we've got, I think, about 8 or so books that would be great for diving in, so that you can include word inquiry into those special events or that start of the year or end of the year. We've got some suggestions for the end of the school year, so that word inquiry really can permeate throughout the entire year with different things that you're focused on in your classroom.
Even though we didn't have a category for it, at the end we thought, well, what if you just have a book that you want to search because it's a classroom favorite, or you just were reading it for another reason? How can you search just for that book? So there is also a search all books, and you'll see if we've done any sort of extensive work with that book to show some different word inquiry elements you could look at.
I think that's so special, because oftentimes a teacher will pick up a book and think like, what can I teach with this book? Whereas now you're thinking about, what am I teaching and how can I find the book that matches what I'm teaching? It makes the learning even more explicit when you're thinking like, I'm focusing on this on my instruction. How can I find the materials that will make things match? It's not just pulling something out of thin air. All of this is organized so beautifully. So that's a really wonderful database that you've arranged. I can't even imagine the hours that went into organizing all of that. Wow. Thank you for sharing all of that with Engage with the Page. So when it comes to implementation, what challenges have you noticed that maybe teachers have had when it comes to word inquiry work?
Oh, I think that our classrooms are so book rich. We have so many lovely books, but we don't always know about that book, or we don't always know what that book how it can connect to what we're already doing. So they might have their favorites, which they've used for a long time, but maybe not knowing the latest books or what that could offer them. So I think Engage with the Page and Search Engage both come from, here's a book, what can I do with it? Or as you said, here's an element I'm studying, what's a book that could go with it? So just to make that connection easier, I think it's just a struggle to go, what am I going to do with this book? How can I make it meaningful? Or how can I make this idea come alive?
And I think the other thing that we often heard was just a lack of professional development. And that's why we really made sure that we included a video for many of our posts just to support people with some understanding. Not everybody has access to amazing consultants like Fiona and other people that are doing this work. And I think I said it before, but the more you notice about words as a teacher and as a student, the more you start to wonder about words. And I think that's where teachers also felt that, oh my gosh, I don't know the answer to this. The kids are asking questions that I don't know the answer to. I remember feeling a little bit out of my depth, getting over that and saying, it's okay that I don't know the answer. Let's find out together. And I think that's why we also included those downloadable learning engagements. We're also getting lots of questions from teachers like, yeah, that's great, but I don't really know how to teach that. So with the video and then the downloadable activity that they could use or hopefully adapt over time when their understanding has grown a little bit more, we were trying to really weave that professional development as best as we could into that work.
Yeah, so I think it's important to note that just as we said, for example, Michelle, the word collector that you could look at, that bound base LECT, we didn't even really talk about that. That was our first post. And we were like, we don't want people to be put off and feel like I can't do this because I don't know enough. So we've tried to keep it as sort of straightforward as we possibly can because, you know, back even when we started this a few years ago, even thinking of word families as, you know, like play, playing, played, or collect, collecting, collected, collection was for many people, oh, that was a new concept. And so we wanted people to feel comfortable that you can show students the relationship between words, use those words in sentences and just show them how words work in that way. So we have tried to keep it relatively straightforward so that it's like little bits of PD, but it's fairly achievable, we hope, by everybody.
Definitely. And I love that mindset as well, because a lot of people can look at this work and think, oh gosh, I don't know the breakdown of this word. I remember one particular instance in adulthood, I learned that the word happy can be broken into HAP and it follows the doubling rule and it has suffix Y. And sometimes when adults think about the word inquiry world, they're like, oh gosh, we're trying to turn children into linguists and have them break down everything into the smallest potential unit possible. And that's not necessarily the purpose because we're learning something new every day. But it is important to be able to see the structure of words, see how that can impact understandings of spelling, understandings of meaning, helpful in decoding, helpful in understanding grammar and syntax and vocabulary. And there is so much value in doing this kind of work. So it's not necessarily trying to overcomplicate things and turn word study into, gosh, we all have to be studying Latin and Greek and know everything about every word under the sun and hold it in our brains at all times, but to also have this, like you said, have this embedded professional development on your platform to be able to tackle some of this work in a way that feels really doable and practical and helpful for students. Kudos to you guys to making that work really accessible to teachers and for making it fun for the students.
Honestly, when I'm working with teachers in various schools or during workshops, I would say the biggest fear that people have that stop them inquiring into words is, what if I look at something like collect and it's not really collect? What if there's a base inside that? And then I always say, well, Pete Bowers actually, I think I got this from him years ago, an incomplete analysis is fine. An incorrect one is not. So don't go any deeper than you are able to go. And if the part that you're working with is a prefix and a base or a base and a suffix, but it's still generative, I can still add other morphemes to it, then there's power in that. You know, like happy. Who cares that you could break down that to find HAP as the base and go much deeper? I mean, sure, that leads you to find words like mishap and happenstance. But actually, for our children to see happy, happier, happiest, that is fantastic. And that's great. Work with happy as your base. It's okay.
Yeah, definitely. There's power in the STEM. So I love that quote.
An incomplete analysis is okay, an incorrect one is not. We don't want to break a word up incorrectly. So if it's a bigger chunk, no problem. You can still add other bits to it.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to implementation of this work, Can you share a success story of some schools or teachers who have found really nice progress using some of your Engage with the Page resources or Search Engage resources?
Oh, remember that one school that had their students write to us with word inquiry questions?
Yeah, they thought we were famous.
They did, yes.
Oh.
We recorded a video and sent it back to their students, right? But they were definitely word noticers, I would say, word inquirers and word noticers.
I don't know about one story in particular. I'm in schools all the time, really, and a lot of schools that I work with, it's a real buzz for me when I get there and they say they've ordered all of the books that we've discussed, and they have like a special shelf in there, either their library or their teacher resource room that has all of the Engage with the Page books, and they often have like a special dot on them or whatever. And so the teachers can then take that book and immediately find connections that they can make by checking out the post on Engage with the Page. I feel like that's a success story.
Yeah, when they're invested.
I have an example that I can think of, one of my favorite stories, but we did a post about the book Leapfrog for Leap Year a couple of years ago. And there was a video about what do you call a child who's born or a person who's born on February the 29th. And it turns out it's a leapling, and that ling suffix, which is such a fun one, like in the word duckling, to investigate. But the children then hypothesized like, oh, maybe someone who's born on February the 29th, it means they're small in age or they have a small number of birthdays. So just to get the kids hypothesizing and thinking is it just makes us so proud of what we've done and what we've achieved.
That's so brilliant. When you get their brains thinking in that sort of way, they'll really blow you away every single time. So many teachers may not have realized that picture books can be such a beautiful and wonderful place to study orthography, to study spelling, to get into word studies. Maybe you just want to reinforce one more time why picture books can be such a powerful place to do this work.
Because that's where real words lie, and picture books are short. The ones that we're choosing, they're short, they're accessible, and we can use them to build engagement, to build comprehension, and then, of course, to dig into our orthography.
Yeah, and they're just so well written, aren't they? With loads of lovely words. You think about a word like happy that our youngest learners are using, and there's a lot going on there, right? But also they have those deeper themes in them as well. Things about friendship or love or action, which can become those word families that you're really investigating as well. So connecting to your classroom culture, but also into words too.
And you think about the research that says how many words a child needs to learn in one particular year. It's just impossible to do that by direct explanation. And so I think this is another reason why the work that you do is incredibly powerful and beneficial. And Fiona talked about the generative vocabulary as well, like when you have words that just expand into such big families that kids become more word conscious and they're able to have a bit of even self-teaching when it comes to vocabulary because they can see the connections between words.
Yeah, and let's not forget great picture books. The language in them is not written in the way that we talk, everyday language. So you've got more complex sentence structures and more complex vocabulary. So it's just as you were saying, Michelle, that self-teaching happens because in context, we're using these rich words, which is what Angela was saying. They're full of lovely words, not necessarily everyday words. And so it's such a beautiful place to build vocabulary. And when we're looking at morphology, we're really working on building vocabulary, looking at bases and connections, words that are connected in the family. So that's why they're an incredible source, I think, for pairing with your word study.
Yeah. Maybe you can share one picture book, especially that has surprised you to yield just a really rich word inquiry experience that you didn't expect.
Well, one of my favorites is a book called Salat in Secret, and it's a beautiful book about Ramadan, a little Muslim boy, and him being a little bit scared and shy to go and pray. But we really looked at the bound base CRET from the word secret, which means set apart, withdrawn, hidden, concealed, or private. And I think the word secretary comes from the same base. And so the secretary was the person who was entrusted with the secrets or private or confidential matters. So knowing about the stories of words really helps us see the connections and patterns that we may not necessarily see otherwise.
Wow, I did not know that one. That is fun.
Really
The
fun.
secretary knows all of the secrets. And then are there any recent word discoveries, big or small, that have just delighted you recently?
Oh, I don't even know if this one's recent, but it always just, because it was so mind-blowing when I saw the connection, is the word consequence. Like, I had never linked the word consequence with the word sequence. I actually read it on a tea bag label one day, which was when I was having a cup of herbal tea, and it was about putting the things in your life in the right sequence and the consequences will be great. And I was like, what? Sequence? Oh, with a consequence is with a sequence. You do this and the consequence is it's the next thing in the sequence. But because of the pronunciation change, that often masks us in seeing the relationship between words. So I love that one.
So fun.
Yeah. And for me, I think we just get so much delight from the students and seeing their joy. Just today, actually, we were revising our work as writers. So we did a quick dip into the structure of the word revising, and we found VISE, or vise, to be the base. So meaning to see. So it was just interesting to go through, we're re-seeing, we're looking at our work again. But then a student, you could see him in the room getting excited to say, well, what about visit? Is it in the family? Oh, to go and see. And vision, seeing something. So really, I just think that their discoveries do become your joy, right? So revisiting a word, seeing it through fresh eyes for sure.
And the vision one is so fun too, because the first time I thought about that family was in Spanish when I was thinking about visión and like visitar. And I was like, wait, are these related? I heard it more in Spanish than I did in English. And then when it came to English, I was like, wow, there's a lot of words in this family. How cool is it?
To build on that, there was a student in the classroom, because we also always ask, do you know this word in your own language? And when you hear it in Spanish and you hear it in English, you can hear that connection for sure. So Michelle just made me think of that.
We do work in international schools where the cultures and languages are so rich, 77 different nationalities at my school. And so to have those languages and that sort of melting pot in your classroom, it just really, the word inquiry just links it all so beautifully, and kids start to see words from their languages and make those connections to English. And it just is so powerful.
Wow, that's a true melting pot. And I love the visual of the language tree. I have a friend in Ireland, and she was showing me the visual that she uses of a language tree, and it just shows all the different branches of, this is the Slavic branch, and this is the Latin branch, and you can see where your language falls. And then when you have such a rich background in your classroom, it's especially fun for students to make those connections, and maybe two different languages share a branch and they can see a more transparent connection in words that are similar in their languages and might be a little bit more far off from a different language. But it's such beautiful work. I think especially Fiona talked about even the pronunciation shift from sequence to consequence, and the pronunciation shift from word to word in different languages as well. So for students to see in print the connections, I think is so powerful, because our pronunciations are all different in English. There's many correct ways to speak English, but to see that orthography is what remains consistent, and that it's so powerful to dig into this work, not just to be a word nerd, like I'm a self-proclaimed word nerd, but it really does have this integrated approach to literacy. And Pete Bowers will often say that morphology is that glue that bonds everything else together. When we think about spelling and meaning and vocabulary, pronunciations, when we look at the structure, that really is that bonding agent. And I think that's why I especially am fond of the work that you do with read-alouds, because it makes this work practical in the classroom. A lot of teachers might be interested in dabbling into this work, but how does it fit in my literacy block? This is how you can make it work. Everyone's doing read-alouds in their classrooms every single day. So let's make the most of that time and go deeper beyond just reading a text and maybe pulling out some vocabulary words or teaching her a thing or two. We can really do a lot of exploratory work that will ground students in so many different arenas in their literacy lives. So again, kudos to you guys, because this project is very, very thorough and ever expanding and growing. So I am appreciative to all the work that you do, and I am excited to see what's next for Search Engage and Engage with the Page. Do you have any special projects or books that you're adding into your database as we speak?
Well, we have promised subscribers that we're going to try and get up to 400 books by the end of the year. So we're busy in the background getting those books ready to upload.
Wow, 400.
Yeah.
Anything that you can think of, right?
That's a lot. So as we said before, Engage with the Page will continue. We have a new book coming out pretty soon. But for those who are subscribers, as Lauren said, we're increasing the number of books. We have just really worked hard to have a downloadable activity for every single book. And for those subscribers, we are more frequently now emailing with tips and tricks for getting the most out of the database, and sometimes some special handouts, extra handouts as well.
Oh, wonderful. This has been such a joy connecting with you all. I loved even just the little lit bits of the word families that you shared towards the end. You know, those light me up.
Mm-hmm.
I am so excited to share about Engage with the Page and Search Engage in the show notes for anyone interested. And maybe you would just like to briefly share where they can also connect with you further.
Yeah, our main social media platform is our Facebook group, and we have over 10,000 followers, which just happened to us recently. We're very excited about that. And also on Instagram, we're really trying to feature those books that we're working on, but showing word inquiry in action as much as possible. I think I like that idea of that lit bit, right? So you have the book and you're trying to look at a word family or a different piece of morphology, but can we see it in action? So we're trying to put some evidence of what that actually looks like with students. Lauren's really working on that for us. So yeah, we're always also looking for people to share how they're using their ideas for both Engage with the Page and Search Engage. Just thank you. You made us feel so supported and reminded us that we're doing good work. So thank you so much for your time and for just taking a moment for us to have some perspective on the work we've done too.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much again for coming on the show. And gosh, we're 12 hours apart from each other right now. So I'm so glad that we were able to make it work. And here's to the next year of Engage with the Page and Search Engage. I see many, many beautiful things ahead. Thank you for diving into those beautiful picture books.
Thanks once again for having us. We loved it. Who doesn't love to talk about words and who doesn't love to talk about picture books? So the combination is beautiful.
Oh, and now that you say combination, I have to tell you, the other day, my daughter, she's 5 years old, we were doing watercolor painting, and she goes, "Mommy, look how nice these colors are combining."
Oh, see, perfect.
To combine, some words have the ATE ending and sometimes have ATEION.
Mm-hmm.
Combination is a word, so I said combinate. I was like, that is a great word.
She's a word noticer for sure.
Yeah, invigorating, of course. They're combinating. And why not?
Combinate all of our beautiful literacy fun together. So Thank you so much for tuning into Literacy in Color. I hope today's episode left you feeling both inspired and equipped with something new to add to your teaching toolkit. If you're enjoying this podcast, it would truly mean so much to me if you'd leave a 5-star review. It helps other educators find the show and join our colorful community. And don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. For more tips, tools, and resources, be sure to check out the links in the show notes at michelleandthecolorfulclassroom.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week. Until then, be colorful and teach colorfully.